pathetic. You think you can ever be happy? I'll ruin you. And this stupid wedding. You're such a joke. Those were the venomous words he spat as he smashed her wedding cake in front of everyone. Gasps filled the room, whispers of disbelief ricocheting from the stunned guests. He laughed at her shock, convinced he had destroyed her special day. But what he didn't know, what no one realized, was that she had a plan. Behind her calm smile, she had orchestrated a nightmare for him, a revenge so precise and ruthless that his moment of triumph would instantly turn to humiliation. Every second of his arrogance, every cruel gesture, was about to backfire. And when her plan unfolded, the man who thought he could break her would be the one left humiliated, shocked, and powerless. This is the story of betrayal, vengeance, and a woman who turned a public act of cruelty into her ultimate triumph. And today, it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. When Sarah first met Ethan, she thought she had stepped into a fairy tale. He was confident without seeming arrogant, funny without trying too hard, and successful in ways that made people listen when he spoke. When he smiled at her across the cafe table on their first date, she thought, this is the kind of man people write stories about. And for a while, the story seemed perfect. Their wedding was elegant, but not extravagant, the kind of event people whispered about weeks afterward. Guests said they were meant to be. Ethan toasted her with a glass of champagne, his arm draped over her shoulder. To Sarah, he said, my lucky star, my reason to be better every day. The crowd applauded. Sarah blushed, feeling safe in his glow. In public, Ethan never missed a chance to praise her. At dinner parties, he pulled out her chair and said things like, my wife has the best taste. You should see how she designed our living room. He posted photos of her online with captions like, how did I get so lucky? But behind closed doors, the glow dimmed. Why would you wear that? He asked one night as she set the table in a simple blue dress. It's fine for, I don't know, a grocery run, but not dinner with my colleagues. Sarah's fork paused over the plates. I thought it looked nice. It looks cheap, he said flatly. Neutral colors work better. Don't embarrass me. The words stung, but she swallowed her reply. At first, she brushed off comments like that. Everyone had flaws. Maybe he was just particular. But then came the little rules. Don't laugh too loud. Don't say gonna. Don't spend time with Lily, her best friend from college, because she drags you down. One evening, after Sarah came home glowing from lunch with Lily, Ethan leaned against the doorway with a glass of scotch. You really need to stop wasting time with her. Sarah set her purse down. She's my best friend. She listens to me. She's a liability, he cut in. She makes you look small. Do you want people thinking you belong with her or with me? The question wasn't really a question. Sarah fell silent. The first real crack came with lipstick on his shirt collar. She held it up with shaky fingers. Whose is this? He barely glanced at it. Relax. I hugged a client after a dinner. Europeans do that. You wouldn't understand. The second crack was harder to deny, a text that lit up his phone at midnight while he showered. Last night was perfect. Same time next week? Her stomach sank. She carried the phone into the bathroom. Who's this? Ethan took it calmly, like he'd rehearsed. Vanessa. She jokes. She's dramatic like that. Sarah's voice trembled. Your ex-girlfriend is texting you this. Don't be insecure, he said, stepping past her with a towel around his waist. You twist things. That's your problems. Sarah wanted to believe him because believing the alternative meant her life was built on lies. So she folded the doubt into herself, like clothes shoved into an overstuffed drawer, but the drawer wouldn't stay shut. One night she prepared his favorite pasta, set candles on the table, even put on the silver earrings he once said he liked. He walked in, glanced at the plates, and waved his hand. "Cancel this. Vanessa's hosting a party at the Preston. We need to go. Change into something appropriate." Sarah's throat went dry. "I made this for you. You can eat it tomorrow." At the gala, Sarah watched Vanessa in an emerald dress lean into Ethan, her fingers brushing his chest. Sarah forced a smile and introduced herself politely. "Of course," Vanessa said, eyes never leaving Ethan. Then she turned away, dismissing Sarah like furniture. On the ride home, Sarah whispered, "She's rude." "She's powerful," Ethan corrected. "Learn the difference." Her jaw tightened. "Powerful people don't need to be cruel," he sighed. "You really don't get this world. It's not about feelings. It's about winning. And right now, Vanessa helps me win." Sarah stared out the window at the glowing city, realizing with a sick twist in her stomach that her husband's world was not hers anymore. The final blow came with a hotel keycard. Sarah found it in Ethan's suit pocket while doing laundry. "What's this?" she asked, holding it up. "A client meeting," he said smoothly, not even glancing at it. "I followed you." Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't waver. "I saw you walk into that hotel with Vanessa." For the first time, Ethan didn't bother to lie. He smirked. "Fine. I slept with her." Sarah's chest caved. "How could you?" "Because she understands me." "You don't." Her voice cracked. "Then why marry me?" "You looked good on paper," he said coldly. "You were easy to control. I thought you'd stay in your lane." "My lane?" "Silence. Support. Not drama." She shook her head, stunned at the cruelty in his eyes. "Then we're done." Ethan laughed, a bitter sound. "You think you can leave me?" "I control the narrative. I have the lawyer, the assets, the reputation. You'll walk away with nothing." He was right. In court, his attorney painted her as unstable, jealous, unfit to handle money. Ethan dabbed his eyes for the cameras, playing the wounded husband. "I wanted it to work," he told the judge, but she refused to get help. Lies piled high, and Sarah was too tired to fight them all. The judge ruled a fair split. Ethan kept the condo, the car, and most of their savings. Sarah left with a small settlement and a box of kitchenware. When Ethan walked out of the courthouse, reporters crowded him. "Any comment?" one shouted. "I wish her the best," he said smoothly, smiling for the cameras. The next day, social media buzzed. She was never on his level. Too plain for him anyway. He's better off. Sarah moved into a one-room apartment with thin walls and no furniture except a mattress. She stared at herself in the mirror, eyes swollen, cheeks hollow. On a sticky note, she wrote, "Not everything that shines is real. Remember who you are." She pressed it to the mirror and whispered, "You broke me in public, Ethan. But watch me rebuild in private." For the first time, she stopped crying. Her humiliation burned into resolve. She would never let him break her again. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? The apartment Sarah moved into after the divorce was smaller than the walk-in closet in Ethan's condo. The walls were bare, the mattress sat directly on the floor, and the single window looked out on a brick wall. On her first night there, she sat cross-legged on the floor with a paper takeout box, eating cold noodles by the light of her phone. "This is what I am now," she whispered to herself. "Starting from zero." She tried to lean on friends, but most didn't answer her calls. Some sent short messages. "I hope you're okay." Others quietly disappeared. At a cafe one morning, she spotted Jenna, one of the women she used to host dinners with. Sarah waved, relief washing over her. But Jenna hesitated, glanced at her expensive watch, and gave a tight smile. "Sarah, hi. I'm actually meeting Ethan and Vanessa here." Sarah's heart sank. "You still see them?" Jenna's smile tightened further. "Ethan helped my husband with a business deal. He's been really supportive. I hope you understand." Before Sarah could reply, Ethan walked in with Vanessa on his arm. He looked immaculate, Vanessa dazzling in a silk dress. Ethan's eyes flicked to Sarah, then he laughed, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. Well, look who it is, the ex-wife. He looked her up and down, smirk curling. "Still trying to find yourself?" Heat crept into Sarah's cheeks. "I don't need your commentary, Ethan." Vanessa let out a tinkling laugh. "Pathetic," she said under her breath, just loud enough for Sarah to hear. Sarah stood, gathering her bag. "Enjoy your coffee," she said, forcing her voice steady. She left, her chest burning but her spine straight. That night, scrolling through her phone, Sarah saw the photos Ethan and Vanessa posted. Dinners, charity galas, tropical vacations. Each caption cut deeper. Winning at life. Some things never fade. Upgrade. She almost threw the phone across the room. Instead, she whispered to the empty apartment, "You can flaunt all you want. I'll rise quietly, and you won't see me coming." Her rise began slowly. She took odd jobs, waitressing, answering phones, even cleaning houses. At night, she studied free online courses, business basics, event planning, marketing. Her notes filled cheap notebooks stacked on the floor. One evening, after a 12-hour shift at a diner, she told herself in the mirror, "You're not just surviving. You're preparing." At first, no one believed in her. When she told old acquaintances she wanted to start an event planning service, they chuckled. "You?" one woman sneered. "Ethan used to complain you couldn't even organize your own kitchen." But Sarah kept going. She planned small parties for neighbors, charging almost nothing just to gain experience. She created simple flyers and taped them to coffee shop boards. Slowly, word spread. People began to notice her reliability, her eye for detail, her kindness. And still, Ethan mocked her whenever their paths crossed. At a mutual friend's birthday dinner, he smirked when someone mentioned Sarah's business. "She's playing dress-up," he said. "It's cute." "She'll get bored soon." Sarah lifted her glass, met his eyes, and said calmly, "Don't worry, Ethan. I'm just getting started." The table went quiet. Ethan's smirk faltered. For the first time, Sarah felt something like power stirring inside her. As her reputation grew, Sarah landed her first big client, a small company gala. She worked tirelessly, designing the decor, coordinating food, making sure every detail was flawless. At the end of the night, the company's CEO shook her hand. "You've got talent," he said. "I'll be recommending you." Walking home that night, Sarah looked up at the city lights and smiled. For the first time in years, she felt alive. It was at another event, an engagement party she organized, that she met David. He wasn't flashy or arrogant. He was a teacher, tall and kind-eyed, who noticed how hard she worked that evening. When most guests ignored her, he approached as she was adjusting the flowers. "You've done a beautiful job here," he said warmly. Sarah blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, thank you. Most people don't notice the details. I do," David said simply. "The details are where the heart shows." They talked briefly, and when he left, he said, "I hope I see you again." They did, slowly, carefully. Coffee dates turned into long walks into quiet dinners. David never rushed her. He asked about her dreams, listened to her fears, and never once made her feel small. One evening, Sarah confessed, "I was married before." "He broke me." David reached across the table, took her hand, and said softly, "Then he was a fool. Because all I see is strength." Tears stung her eyes, but they weren't the kind that burned. They were the kind that healed. Years passed, and Sarah's business blossomed. She hired assistants, rented an office, and built a name people respected. The same people who once doubted her now sought her services. She smiled politely, never mentioning how they had dismissed her. David was by her side through it all, steady, encouraging, never overshadowing her. When he proposed, it wasn't in front of cameras or crowds. It was on a quiet evening walk by the river. He slipped a ring onto her hand and said, "You deserve joy." "Let me share it with you." Sarah said yes with tears streaming down her face. For once, her life felt like it was truly hers. But not everyone celebrated her happiness. When Ethan heard of her engagement, his pride cracked. He mocked her business more loudly, laughed at her success in front of mutual friends. At a cocktail party where Sarah was in attendance, he raised his glass and sneered, "Sarah thinks she's an entrepreneur now. Cute, right? Too bad she's still a wannabe. No matter how much she pretends, she'll always be the woman who lost me." Sarah met his eyes, her smile calm but sharp. "And you'll always be the man who underestimated me." Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan's face darkened. For the first time it was clear. Sarah wasn't afraid of him anymore. But Ethan wasn't finished. His bitterness grew, festering. And when Sarah's wedding to David approached, Ethan made sure he'd be there. Not to celebrate, but to destroy. Sarah had no idea that the most humiliating moment of her life was waiting at her own reception. And Ethan had no idea that she already had his worst nightmare planned. The church bells rang softly as Sarah and David exchanged vows, their voices trembling with joy. The small chapel glowed with white flowers and warm candlelight. Guests dabbed their eyes, smiling at the simple beauty of the moment. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," David leaned in, kissed her gently, and whispered, "You're my miracle." Sarah's heart soared. For the first time in years, she wasn't pretending. She wasn't playing a role in someone else's performance. She was living her truth, and everyone in the room could see it. The reception was held in a charming garden hall, strung with twinkling lights. Long tables held homemade desserts, simple but elegant centerpieces, and laughter filled the air. Friends clinked glasses and toasted, "To Sarah and David. To love, real love." Sarah laughed more that night than she had in years. She moved from table to table, hugging guests, her white dress brushing against the floor. Every smile, every word of congratulations felt like balm on old wounds, but not everyone celebrated her joy. At the back of the hall, Ethan stood in the shadows. His tie was loose, his steps unsteady from too much whiskey. Vanessa hadn't come with him. She had grown tired of his bitterness months ago. Tonight, Ethan was alone, his pride raw and festering. He watched Sarah's laughter like it was an insult. Every toast was a knife in his chest. The woman he thought he'd destroyed was glowing brighter than ever. And worse, she looked untouchable. "Pathetic," he muttered to himself. "She thinks she won." When David raised his glass and kissed Sarah's hand, Ethan snapped. He shoved his way through the crowd, sending murmurs rippling as heads turned. Sarah froze when she saw him. For a second, her old instincts kicked in, panic, dread. But then David's hand squeezed hers, steady and sure. She breathed once, deeply, and faced Ethan. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you shouldn't be here." He staggered closer, his voice loud, slurred with drink. "Shouldn't be here? This is my stage, my story. You think you can ever be happy without me?" Gasps rippled through the guests. A little boy at the dessert table tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Who's that man?" Ethan jabbed a finger at Sarah, his face twisted with rage. "Pathetic. That's what you are. You'll always be pathetic. You're a joke, and I'll prove it right now." "Ethan, stop," David said firmly, stepping forward. But Ethan laughed, a cruel sound that silenced the room. He turned, marched toward the towering wedding cake at the center of the hall, and with one vicious sweep of his arm, sent it crashing to the floor. The cake split apart in a heap of frosting and sponge, white layers smeared across the tiles. The sound of gasps and cries filled the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Ethan threw his arms wide, grinning like a victor. There. Ruined. Just like her. Just like always. She's nothing. And now everyone sees it. The room buzzed with horrified whispers. Her ex-husband. I can't believe he did that. He ruined her wedding. Ethan strutted in front of the smashed cake, basking in the chaos he created. He expected tears, screams, Sarah collapsing in shame. That was the script he imagined. The script he had forced on her for years. But when he turned back to her, ready to savor her humiliation, Sarah wasn't broken. She was smiling. Not the smile of a woman in shock, not a forced smile to cover pain. It was calm, controlled, almost cold. The kind of smile that made Ethan's victory feel suddenly, terrifyingly hollow. The crowd held its breath, waiting for Sarah to crumble. Instead, she stepped forward, the lights glinting off her dress. She looked at the wrecked cake, then at Ethan, her face serene. "Is that it?" she asked softly. Ethan blinked. "What?" "That's your grand gesture, smashing sugar and flour." Her voice was steady, but every word cut. "You think you ruined me with a cake?" A murmur of surprise rippled through the guests. Ethan's smirk faltered. "You don't get to talk to me like that." David placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, but she shook her head gently. "No. He needs to hear this." She took a step closer to Ethan, her eyes locked on his. "For years, you made me feel small. You told me I was plain. You told me I was worthless without you. And for a while I believed it." Ethan sneered. "Because it's true." Sarah's smile didn't waver. "No, Ethan. It's your truth. The one you created to keep me under your thumb. But look around you." She gestured to the guests, the friends and family who loved her, the man who stood proudly at her side. "Do you see me collapsing? Do you see me begging you? Because I'm not the woman you tried to break anymore." The crowd erupted in whispers. Some guests nodded, their eyes shining with admiration. Ethan's face reddened. "You think this changes anything? You'll never be on my level. You're still a wannabe." Sarah tilted her head. "Then why are you here, Ethan? If I'm nothing, why crash my wedding? Why cling to me like a shadow you can't shake?" His mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, he looked unsteady. She smiled again, sharper now. "The truth is, you didn't ruin me tonight. You revealed yourself." To everyone, all eyes turned to Ethan, disheveled, drunk, standing in front of the wreckage he created. The powerful image he clung to for years crumbled in seconds. Guests began murmuring louder now, not about Sarah, but about him. "Disgraceful. I can't believe he did this. So bitter." David finally stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's time for you to leave, Ethan." Ethan's eyes darted around, searching for someone, anyone to back him. But the crowd had already judged. He wasn't the man in control anymore. He was the bitter ex, drunk and pathetic, exposed in his own cruelty. Two ushers moved forward and guided him toward the door. His protests grew weaker. "She's nothing! She's—" The door shut on his words. Silence settled. All eyes turned back to Sarah. She looked down at the smashed cake, then back at her guests. I suppose dessert will be unconventional tonight, she said with a soft laugh. The room erupted in applause and cheers. The tension broke like a dam, replaced with admiration. Sarah raised her glass. To new beginnings. To love. To joy no one can take away. Her calm in the face of humiliation became the story of the night. Not Ethan's tantrum. Not the ruined cake. The whispers changed. She handled that with such grace. Ethan looked like a fool. Sarah's stronger than ever. And in the corner of the room, as the band began to play again, Sarah stood taller, her hand in David's. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the calm before the storm. And Ethan had no idea that his real nightmare was still to come. The music had just started again when Sarah lifted her hand. One moment, please. Her voice was calm, but it cut through the chatter like a blade. The band silenced. The crowd turned. Sarah stepped to the center of the room, her posture tall, her eyes steady. Tonight was supposed to be about love, about joy. But sometimes life gives us interruptions. She glanced at the smashed cake on the floor, then back at the guests. And sometimes interruptions reveal the truth. Ethan's laughter still echoed faintly from outside the hall. People shifted uncomfortably, wondering what Sarah would do next. David leaned in. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. Oh yes, Sarah replied softly. I do. She gestured toward the far wall. Suddenly, the large projector screen flickered to life. Gasps filled the room. On the screen, crystal clear footage appeared. Ethan storming into the hall, his drunken rant, his venomous words, his triumphant destruction of the cake. Every cruel word was caught from 3 different angles. Guests leaned forward, shocked. One woman covered her mouth. A man muttered. He set himself up. Sarah's voice was calm. I run an event company. I always arrange discreet security cameras for safety. Tonight, they served a different purpose. Murmurs swelled, admiration sparking in the crowd. Sarah continued, her eyes glinting. But that's not all. Daniel Hayes, her attorney and trusted friend, stepped forward, carrying a slim black folder. Sarah opened it, sliding crisp documents onto a nearby table where cameras from the press had been rolling all evening. These, Sarah said, tapping the papers, are records of Ethan's financial dealings. Fraud, embezzlement, illegal transfers. While he played the role of the wealthy hero, he was stealing from the very people who trusted him. Gasps. A reporter scribbled furiously. Someone pulled out a phone, already snapping photos of the evidence. And then, another voice rose from the crowd. Don't forget me, Vanessa said. She stepped forward, heels clicking like gunshots. She looked flawless as always, but her eyes burned with fury. She held up a slim envelope. This man, your precious Ethan, was cheating on me too. While I defended him, while I believed him, he was seeing another woman behind my back. I have proof. She scattered printed photos onto the floor, receipts fluttering like damning confetti. The guests gasped louder. All eyes turned to the door where Ethan had exited minutes earlier. He wasn't just bitter, he was exposed. Vanessa spat, her voice sharp enough to slice. You thought you'd ruin her, Ethan. You ruined yourself. Applause broke out, scattered at first, then louder. Reporters surged, cameras flashing, phones buzzed, as clips and images spread across social media in real time. By the time Ethan staggered back in, confusion in his eyes, the room was no longer his. It belonged to Sarah. Ethan froze in the doorway. His smirk faltered as he saw the footage looping on the projector, the financial papers in reporters' hands, Vanessa glaring at him like he was poison. What? What is this? He stammered. Sarah turned slowly, her gown glowing in the light. The truth, she said. You set me up, he roared. No, she replied calmly. You set yourself up. I only made sure everyone could see it. His old allies, business partners, friends who once fawned over him, backed away. One man shook his head. I trusted you, Ethan. Not anymore. Another muttered, We're finished. Even his own cousin, who had stood by him during the divorce, whispered, Disgraceful, before walking out. The final betrayal was the loudest. Vanessa stepped close, her voice ringing. You humiliated me. You lied to me. And now you'll drown alone. She spat at his feet. The crowd gasped, then cheered. Ethan's face turned red, then pale. His voice cracked. You can't do this to me. I built everything. Sarah took the microphone from the DJ's stand. The hall fell silent. When I begged for dignity, she said, her voice strong, you gave me humiliation. When I asked for love, you gave me betrayal. Tonight, I return the favor. She paused, eyes sweeping the crowd. But unlike you, I rise stronger. The room erupted in applause. People stood, clapping, cheering, chanting her name. Reporters swarmed Ethan. What about the fraud, Ethan? Are the allegations true? How long have you been stealing? He stumbled backward, eyes wild, but before he could escape, uniformed officers entered the hall. One stepped forward, handcuffs glinting. Ethan Blake, the officer declared, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and financial misconduct. You have the right to remain silent. Gasps turned into flashes as cameras clicked furiously. Ethan shouted, This isn't real. She planted it all, but no one believed him anymore. His mask was gone. The officers dragged him out. Vanessa turned away. His allies scattered. His reputation collapsed in front of him, brick by brick, until nothing remained. Sarah stood tall, the microphone still in her hand. Her voice cut through the noise one final time. He smashed my cake, thinking he'd ruined me. But all he smashed was the mask he wore. His nightmare wasn't my wedding, it was watching me win. The hall thundered with applause. In the weeks that followed, headlines blared, Ex-husband exposed at wedding. Fraudster arrested after bride outs him mid-reception. Sarah Blake, the woman who turned humiliation into triumph. Ethan sat in jail awaiting trial. His fortune evaporated, his name dragged through every newspaper.